The handcuffs clicked shut tight enough to bruise bone. Officer Matt Donovan leaned in, his hot breath smelling of stale coffee and arrogance, and whispered, "Nobody cares about a drifter like you. You're going away for good, and I'm getting a promotion." They thought he was just another statistic. They thought he was David Brooks, a nobody passing through their corrupt little town of Willow Springs. They were wrong. They didn't know the man in the orange jumpsuit wasn't a criminal. He was Special Agent Ryan Mitchell, a decorated FBI operative on a deep-cover RICO assignment. And the video recording hidden in his jacket button was still running. You're about to witness the most satisfying courtroom takedown in history. When the predator becomes the prey, the silence is deafening. Stay tuned because the twist in Minute 9 changes everything. The air in the Willow Springs County Courthouse was thick, smelling of old wood, floor wax, and the quiet desperation of people realizing their lives were over. The fluorescent lights buzzed with a headache-inducing hum, flickering slightly above the defense table. Sitting in the defendant's chair, Ryan Mitchell kept his posture rigid. He wore an ill-fitting orange jumpsuit that smelled of industrial detergent and sweat. His wrists were shackled to the table, the metal cold against his dark skin. To the jury, he looked exactly like what the district attorney was painting him to be: a dangerous transient, a drifter with a violent streak and a trunk full of narcotics. To the man sitting 2 tables away, Officer Matt Donovan, Ryan looked like a trophy. Donovan sat behind the prosecutor, leaning back in his chair with a smugness that bordered on obscenity. He was chewing gum, his uniform pressed perfectly, his badge gleaming under the harsh lights. Beside him sat Chief of Police Frank Callahan, a man with a neck thick as a tree stump and eyes that had seen everything and cared about nothing. "All rise," the bailiff droned. Judge Harlan Whitaker swept into the room. He was a relic of the old guard down south, a man with silver hair combed back severely and a face etched with lines of permanent disapproval. He sat down, adjusted his glasses, and looked at Ryan with distinct distaste. "Be seated," Whitaker grumbled. "We are back on the record in the matter of the state versus David Brooks. The charge is assault on a police officer, resisting arrest, and possession with intent to distribute. Mr. Kane, is the state ready to proceed with its first witness?" District Attorney Victor Kane stood up. He was a tall, skeletal man who moved with the jerky precision of a marionette. "We are, Your Honor." The state calls Officer Matt Donovan to the stand. Ryan remained silent. His public defender, a young, overworked woman named Rachel Bennett, placed a trembling hand on his arm. "Don't worry, Mr. Brooks," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm going to try to object when I can, but Judge Whitaker usually sides with the officers." Ryan turned to her. His eyes were calm, unsettlingly so. "Just let them talk, Rachel. Let them say everything they want to say. Don't stop them." Rachel frowned, confused. "But trust me," Ryan said softly. Officer Donovan took the stand. He placed his hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and sat down. He looked at the jury, 12 ordinary citizens who looked terrified of making the wrong decision, and gave them a practiced shark-like smile. "Officer Donovan," Kane began, pacing in front of the jury box, "walk us through that night near the old lumber yard out on Highway 17. Donovan cleared his throat. "Yes, sir. We had reports of drug activity there. I saw the defendant's vehicle, a beat-up 2015 sedan, parked suspiciously behind the warehouse. And what happened next? I initiated a stop," Donovan lied effortlessly. "I approached the vehicle. The defendant, Mr. Brooks, appeared agitated. His eyes were dilated. I asked him to step out of the car." Ryan watched Donovan carefully. He was studying the officer's body language, The micro-expressions, the way Donovan tapped his left index finger on the railing of the witness stand. A tell. He was reciting a script. "Did he comply?" Kane asked. "No, sir," Donovan said, shaking his head theatrically. "He became belligerent. He started shouting that I had no right to be there. Then he reached for his waistband. I feared for my life, sir. I thought he had a weapon. I had to forcefully remove him from the vehicle for my own safety." The jury gasped softly. A middle-aged woman in the front row shook her head, looking at Ryan with fear. "And after you subdued him, we searched the vehicle," Donovan continued. "We found 2 kilos of cocaine wrapped in duct tape under the driver's seat and a registered Glock 19 with the serial numbers filed off in the glove box." "Lies," Rachel whispered furiously, scribbling on her notepad. "There was no gun. The police report said the gun was in your waistband. Now it's in the glove box." "Let him talk," Ryan repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "Officer Donovan," Kane said, leaning in. "Did the defendant say anything to you while you were transporting him to the station?" Donovan smirked. He looked directly at Ryan, his eyes cold and dead. "Yeah. He told me he'd kill me if he ever got out. Said he had friends in high places." Kane turned to the jury, pausing for dramatic effect. "A threat on an officer's life. Thank you, Officer Donovan." Judge Whitaker looked over his spectacles at Rachel. "Cross-examination, Miss Bennett." Rachel stood up, her papers shuffling awkwardly. "Yes, Your Honor." She walked to the podium. She looked small against the backdrop of the massive courtroom. "Officer Donovan, you said my client reached for his waistband. But your body camera footage, it was turned off during the altercation, wasn't it?" Donovan didn't blink. "Equipment malfunction, ma'am. Battery died right as I exited my cruiser." "Terrible timing." "Terrible timing indeed," Rachel said, her voice gaining a little strength. "And the dashcam file was corrupted." "Looking into it," Donovan said, bored. "So we have only your word that my client, a man with no prior criminal record in this state, suddenly decided to attack an armed officer." "My word," Donovan said, his voice dropping an octave. "And the 2 kilos of cocaine we found in his car." Rachel looked helpless. Without the footage, the badge always won in Willow Springs. "No further questions," she mumbled. As Donovan stepped down, he passed the defense table. He slowed just enough to wink at Ryan. It was a subtle, quick movement, but Ryan caught at it. "Enjoy it while it lasts, Matt," Ryan thought. "You just hammered the first nail into your own coffin." The afternoon dragged on, a slow-motion execution of justice. The prosecution called witness after witness. A forensic analyst who claimed the drugs tested positive for high-grade cocaine. A station clerk who claimed Ryan had been violent and abusive during processing. Every word was a fabrication, a carefully constructed tower of lies designed to bury David Brooks under a life sentence. Ryan sat through it all, his face a mask of stone. He wasn't just a defendant. He was an observer, analyzing the hierarchy. Chief Callahan was the architect. Donovan was the muscle. Kane was the cleaner. They had done this before. You could tell by the rhythm of it. They picked drifters, people without families, people who wouldn't be missed, and pinned their own cartel shipments on them to clear the books. It was a perfect racket, until they picked the wrong drifter. "The state calls Chief Frank Callahan to the stand," Kane announced. A ripple of murmurs went through the courtroom. Callahan was a local celebrity. He played golf with the mayor, organized the charity drives, and kept the town safe. He walked to the stand with the heavy, confident gait of a man who owned the building. "Chief Callahan," Kane smiled. "Thank you for being here." "Duty calls, Victor," Callahan rumbled. His voice sounded like gravel in a mixer. "Chief, you oversaw the processing of the evidence in this case. Can you verify the chain of custody?" "I can," Callahan said. "I personally logged the narcotics into the evidence locker. I wanted to make sure everything was by the book, considering the volume of the seizure. And did you speak to the defendant? Callahan turned his gaze toward Ryan. It wasn't a look of anger. It was a look of pity, the way a butcher looks at a cow. I did. I tried to see if he wanted to cooperate, give up his supplier, maybe cut a deal. And what was his response? He laughed at me. Callahan lied. Told me I didn't know who I was messing with. Said his organization would burn this town to the ground. Objection! Rachel Bennett shouted, jumping up. Hearsay and prejudicial. Overruled. Judge Whitaker snapped without looking up. It goes to the defendant's state of mind and intent. Sit down, Miss Bennett. Rachel sank back into her chair, her face flushing red. I can't believe this, she hissed. They're making you out to be a cartel boss. It's the narrative. Ryan whispered. They need a big win to justify the federal grant money they applied for. Anti-drug trafficking funds. They need a bust. Rachel looked at him, startled. How do you know about the grant money? Ryan didn't answer. He just tapped his finger on the table. Callahan finished his testimony, painting Ryan as a hardened career criminal. The jury was eating it up. They looked at Ryan not as a man, but as a monster who had invaded their peaceful community. The prosecution rests, Kane announced, buttoning his suit jacket with a flourish. Judge Whitaker looked at the clock. Miss Bennett, are you ready to present your case? Rachel stood up. She looked tired. She had no witnesses, no evidence, just the word of a man who refused to give his real name. Your Honor, the defense would like to request a recess until tomorrow morning to— Request denied, Whitaker barked. We are finishing this today. Call your witness or rest your case. Rachel looked at Ryan, panic in her eyes. Ryan, I have nothing unless you want to testify. But if you do, Kane will tear you apart. Ryan slowly uncrossed his legs. The shackles clinked loudly in the silent courtroom. He took a deep breath. I'll testify, Ryan said. His voice wasn't a whisper anymore. It projected to the back of the room. Mr. Brooks, I advise against it, Rachel warned. I'll testify, Ryan repeated, standing up. But I don't need to take the stand just yet. I have a preliminary motion regarding evidence. Judge Whitaker scowled. You have a lawyer, son. Let her speak. My lawyer doesn't know about the evidence I have, Your Honor, Ryan said smoothly, because I couldn't risk it being corrupted like Officer Donovan's dash cam. The room went dead silent. Donovan shifted in his seat, his gum chewing stopping for a second. Chief Callahan narrowed his eyes. What are you playing at? Whitaker demanded. I am requesting permission to connect a digital device to the court's AV system, Ryan said. I believe it contains exculpatory evidence that will refute the testimony of Officer Donovan and Chief Callahan. We've already been through discovery, Kane shouted, jumping up. Anything he has is inadmissible. He's stalling. It's not stalling if it proves perjury, Ryan said calmly. He looked directly at the judge. Unless the court isn't interested in the truth. Judge Whitaker looked at the angry prosecutor, then at the confident defendant. He was an arrogant judge, but he was also curious, and he knew the court reporter was typing every word. If he denied evidence that the defendant claimed proved perjury, it would be grounds for a mistrial appeal instantly. You have 5 minutes, Whitaker grumbled. If this is a waste of time, Mr. Brooks, I will hold you in contempt on top of your sentence. Ryan turned to Rachel. Reaching into my back pocket is difficult with these cuffs. In my right pocket, there is a small black USB drive. Take it. Take. Rachel hesitated, then reached into his pocket. She pulled out a sleek, military-grade encrypted drive. Give it to the bailiff, Ryan instructed. Donovan leaned over to Callahan. What the hell is that? He whispered harshly. Callahan didn't answer. His face had gone pale. He was staring at the drive. He recognized the brand. It wasn't something you bought at Walmart. The bailiff took the drive and plugged it into the presentation laptop. A screen descended from the ceiling. Open the folder labeled Willow Springs Sting Alpha, Ryan said. The bailiff clicked. Now, Ryan said, his voice turning to steel. Play file Donovan arrest backup. The screen flickered to life. The audio crackled, and suddenly, the courtroom was transported back to that night near the lumberyard. But this wasn't the dashcam footage. This was a wide-angle, high-definition view from a button camera on Ryan's chest. On the screen, Officer Donovan was visible, leaning into the car window. "Get out of the car, boy," the digital Donovan sneered. "Officer, I'm complying. What is the probable cause?" Ryan's voice on the recording was calm. "Probable cause is I don't like your face. Get out before I drag you out." The courtroom gasped. On the screen, the video showed Ryan stepping out with his hands up. No reaching for the waistband. No struggle. Then the video showed Donovan shoving Ryan against the hood. It showed Donovan reaching into his own patrol bag, pulling out a brick of white powder, and tossing it into Ryan's back seat. "Look at that," the digital Donovan laughed. "Looks like you're riding heavy tonight. That's a life sentence right there." The video continued. Donovan pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. "Chief, yeah, it's Matt. I got one. Yeah, nobody. Just a drifter. We can pin the shipment from the warehouse on him. Yeah, come on down." The video froze. In the courtroom, silence wasn't just an absence of sound. It was a physical weight. Officer Donovan was standing up, his face the color of a tomato. That's fake. It's AI. Deepfake." Ryan turned slowly to face the gallery. He looked Donovan dead in the eye. "It's not a deepfake, Officer Donovan," Ryan said. "And my name isn't David Brooks." He looked at the bailiff. "Unlock these cuffs now." "Sit down," Judge Whitaker shouted, banging his gavel. "Order. I will have order." "You have no authority here anymore, Judge," Ryan said, his voice thundering. "Because this isn't just a state trial. This is a federal crime scene." Ryan looked toward the double doors at the back of the courtroom. "Now," he shouted. The double doors at the back of the courtroom didn't just open. They exploded inward. "Federal agents, nobody move. Hands where I can see them." The roar was deafening. 12 men in full tactical gear, emblazoned with the bold yellow letters FBI across their chest plates, swarmed into the room like a tide of black steel. The gallery erupted in screams. Civilians ducked under benches. The jury scrambled over one another, pressing themselves against the back wall of the box. Officer Matt Donovan froze. His hand had instinctively twitched toward his service weapon. A fatal mistake. Before his fingers could even graze the leather of his holster, 3 red laser dots appeared on his chest. "Don't do it, Donovan," a voice boomed from the tactical team leader. "Drop to your knees now." Donovan looked at the lasers, then at Chief Callahan. The chief was already on the ground, his face pressed into the dirty linoleum, hands laced behind his head. The fight had left him instantly. He knew what a federal raid looked like. He knew this wasn't a negotiation. Donovan's knees buckled. He sank to the floor, his hands trembling as he raised them. In the center of the chaos, Ryan stood perfectly still. The bailiff, a young man named Peterson, who looked like he was about to faint, was staring at Ryan with wide, terrified eyes. "The keys," Ryan said calmly. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. With shaking hands, Peterson fumbled for the keys on his belt. He stepped forward and unlocked the shackles on Ryan's wrists. The metal clicked open, and the heavy cuffs fell to the table with a dull thud. Ryan rubbed his wrists, the skin chafed and raw. He rolled his neck, a sickening crack echoing in the sudden silence that had fallen over the room as the FBI team secured the perimeter. An older agent in a suit, not tactical gear, walked briskly up the center aisle. He carried a duffel bag. He stopped in front of Ryan. "Agent Mitchell," the man said, handing him the bag. "We were worried you were going to let them sentence you just to see how far they'd go." "I almost did, Tyler," Ryan replied. He unzipped the bag. Right there in the middle of the courtroom, Ryan stripped off the orange jumpsuit top. Underneath, he wore a black tactical, moisture-wicking shirt. From the bag, he pulled out his own badge, a gold shield on a leather lanyard, and placed it around his neck. Then he clipped his service weapon, a Sig Sauer P226, onto his belt. The transformation was complete. The drifter, David Brooks, was gone. Standing in his place was Special Agent Ryan Mitchell, a senior operative for the Bureau's Public Corruption Unit. He turned to the defense table. Rachel Bennett, the public defender, was sitting with her mouth open, clutching her notepad to her chest like a shield. "I'm sorry for the deception, Rachel," Ryan said, his voice softer now. "You were the only person in this building I wasn't investigating. You're a hell of a lawyer. You fought for me when you thought I was nobody." Rachel blinked, tears forming in her eyes. "You're FBI?" "Yes, ma'am." Ryan turned his attention to the prosecution table. District Attorney Victor Kane was standing frozen, his skeletal face drained of all color. He looked like a wax statue melting under heat. Ryan walked over to the witness stand where Officer Donovan was being zip-tied by 2 agents. Ryan leaned down, bringing his face inches from the corrupt cops. "You said nobody cares about a drifter," Ryan whispered, echoing Donovan's words from the arrest. "You were right, but the United States Department of Justice cares a whole lot about a police department running a drug distribution ring using the county evidence locker as a warehouse." Donovan sputtered. "You entrapped me. This is entrapment." "It's not entrapment when you plant the evidence yourself, Matt," Ryan said coldly. "Agent Brooks, get him out of my sight." "What is the meaning of this?" The shout came from the bench. Judge Harlan Whitaker was standing up, banging his gavel furiously. His face was purple with rage. "You cannot storm my courtroom. I am a judge of the circuit court. I will have every single one of you held in contempt. Bailiffs, arrest these men." The bailiffs didn't move. They were currently being patted down by federal agents. Ryan turned slowly to face the judge. He walked up the steps of the bench, moving higher until he was eye level with the man who had looked down on him throughout the trial. "Harlan Whitaker," Ryan said, his voice projecting clearly. "You are under a raw arrest." "On what charge?" Whitaker sputtered. "Incompetence? Rudeness? You have no jurisdiction over my court." "Oh, it's not just your court, Harlan," Ryan said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He slammed it onto the judge's bench. "That is a federal RICO indictment, racketeering, influence, and corrupt organizations. We've been listening, Judge, for months. We have your phone taps. We have your bank records in the Cayman Islands, and we have the testimony of your bagman." Judge Whitaker's eyes went wide. "Bagman? I don't know what you're talking about." "We picked up the mayor's aide this morning," Ryan said, delivering the blow. "He flipped in 30 minutes. He gave us everyone, the chief, the DA, and you. The silent partner who takes a cut of every kilo seized and resold by the Willow Springs Police Department." A gasp went through the remaining gallery members. The pillars of their community weren't just dirty. They were rotting. "Cuff him," Ryan ordered. 2 agents moved up the steps. Judge Harlan Whitaker, the tyrant of Willow Springs, was spun around and handcuffed in his own chair. Ryan turned back to the room. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by the cold, hard satisfaction of the takedown. But he knew it wasn't over. "Secure the exits," Ryan ordered Agent Brooks. "Nobody leaves. We have to process everyone and get the tech team in here. I want every hard drive in the clerk's office seized before they can run magnets over them." "Mitchell," Brooks called out, holding a tablet. "You need to see this. The stream." Ryan walked over. "What stream?" "The courtroom feed," Brooks said grimly. "We cut the local feed, but someone else is broadcasting. and it's not us. Ryan looked at the tablet. It showed a live view of the courtroom from a high angle, likely a security camera hidden in the ventilation grate. The viewer count was ticking up rapidly. 5,000, 10,000, 50,000. "Who is broadcasting this?" Ryan asked. "We don't know," Brooks said. "But look at the chat. They aren't just watching. They're cheering for the judge." Ryan frowned. He looked closer at the comments scrolling on the side of the feed. "Free Judge Whitaker. The feds are the enemy. Willow Springs strong." It's a malicious signal, Ryan realized, his blood running cold. Whitaker isn't just a crook. He's their ideology. Suddenly, the glass of the courtroom's double doors shattered inward. But it wasn't the FBI this time. A Molotov cocktail smashed against the back wall, erupting in a ball of fire. "Fire! Get down!" The scream tore through the room as black smoke instantly began to curl toward the ceiling. The fire alarm blared, a piercing shriek that made communication nearly impossible. "Secure the prisoners," Ryan said, coughing as the acrid smoke hit his lungs. "Brooks, get the judge and the chief out the back way. If they die, our case dies." The FBI team switched instantly from arrest mode to extraction mode. They grabbed Judge Whitaker, who was now screaming not in anger but in terror, and hauled him toward the judge's chambers. "The front doors are blocked," an agent shouted over the comms. "We have hostiles outside, civilians with AR-15s. They've barricaded the courthouse steps." Ryan drew his weapon. This wasn't a bust anymore. It was a siege. "Rachel!" Ryan grabbed the public defender by the arm. She was paralyzed with fear, staring at the flames licking up the back paneling. "Come with me." He dragged her behind the heavy oak defense table, flipping it over to create a barricade. "Stay down. Do not move unless I tell you." "Who are they?" Rachel cried, her voice trembling. "Who is attacking us?" "Whitaker's insurance policy." Ryan grimaced, checking the magazine of his cig. He knew if the feds ever came for him, he could rally the local patriot groups. He spun a narrative that the government was trying to take over their town. He's weaponized them. Another bottle smashed through the window, this one filled with paint, blinding the agents trying to return fire. "Mitchell, this is Brooks." The radio crackled. "The back exit is compromised. Someone chained the fire doors from the outside. We are trapped in the holding area." "Damn it," Ryan hissed. He looked around the courtroom. The fire was spreading. The sprinklers finally kicked in, dousing the room in a shower of dirty water, turning the floor into a slippery mess, but doing little to stop the gasoline fire at the entrance. District Attorney Victor Kane, who had been left unguarded in the chaos, saw his opportunity. He scrambled toward the side door, the one leading to the clerk's office. "Kane, stop!" Ryan shouted. Kane ignored him. He burst through the door and immediately screamed. A gunshot rang out. Kane stumbled back into the courtroom, clutching his shoulder. He fell to the wet floor, writhing in pain. A man stepped through the side door. He wasn't FBI. He wasn't police. He was wearing hunting camouflage and holding a sawed-off shotgun. Behind him were 3 others, similarly dressed, faces covered with bandanas. "Let the judge go!" the leader screamed. "We know you have him. Release Judge Whitaker, and we won't kill everyone in here." The tactical agents near the jury box trained their rifles on the intruders. It was a standoff, a Mexican standoff in a burning courtroom with water raining down and the air thick with smoke. Ryan stayed low behind the table. He was calculating angles. 4 hostiles, shotguns, and hunting rifles. High ground advantage was with the FBI, but the hostiles had the element of surprise and desperation. "Listen to me," Ryan shouted from cover. "My name is Special Agent Mitchell. You are committing a federal act of terrorism. Put down your weapons. "We don't recognize your authority, Fed," the leader shouted back. He racked the slide of his shotgun. "I'm giving you 10 seconds. Send him out or we start shooting civilians, starting with this lawyer piece of trash." The gunman pointed the shotgun at Kane, who was bleeding out on the floor. "He's one of yours," Ryan yelled. "That's the district attorney." He failed to protect the judge. The gunman spat. "He's expendable." Ryan looked at Rachel. She was huddled in a ball, praying. "Brooks," Ryan whispered into his radio headset, "do you have a shot on the leader? Side door." "Negative," Brooks replied. "Too much smoke. I can't risk hitting the jury." Ryan took a deep breath. He had to do this himself. "Okay," Ryan shouted, standing up slowly, his hands raised, his gun hanging from one finger by the trigger guard. "Okay, let's talk. You want him? You can have him." "Ryan, what are you doing?" Rachel hissed. "Shut up," Ryan whispered. He walked out from behind the table, stepping into the open aisle. The water soaked his tactical shirt instantly. The leader of the militia swung his shotgun toward Ryan. "Bring him out," the gunman ordered. "He's back there." Ryan gestured with his head toward the chambers, but he's handcuffed. "I have the key." Ryan reached into his pocket with his free hand. He pulled out the key that Peterson had used to unlock his shackles earlier. He held it up. "Let me go unlock him," Ryan said calmly. "You can take him and go. We just want the civilians safe." The gunman narrowed his eyes. "Toss the gun." Ryan tossed his Sig Sauer to the side. It skittered across the wet floor, sliding under a bench. "Smart move," the gunman sneered. "Now move slowly." Ryan walked toward the side door, moving diagonally. He was closing the distance. He wasn't walking toward the chambers. He was walking toward the gunman to get the angle to the chambers. "Stop!" the gunman yelled. "That's close enough. Toss the key." "It's slippery," Ryan said. "I don't want to drop it." "Toss it." Ryan flicked his wrist. He threw the small metal key, but he didn't throw it at the gunman. He threw it high toward the fluorescent light fixture directly above the gunman's head. The gunman's eyes instinctively tracked the shiny metal object flying through the air. That split-second distraction was all Ryan needed. He didn't dive for his gun. He dove for the gunman. Ryan hit the man low, tackling him around the waist. The shotgun discharged into the ceiling, blowing out the lights and plunging that corner of the room into semi-darkness. Move in, Brooks roared. The FBI team surged forward. Flashbangs detonated. Bang, bang. Blinding white light cutting through the smoke. Ryan wrestled with the leader in the water. The man was strong, fueled by adrenaline and fanaticism. He clawed at Ryan's eyes, trying to gouge them out. Ryan blocked a strike and delivered a short, brutal elbow to the man's jaw. Bone crunched. The man went limp. Ryan rolled over, grabbing the shotgun. He pumped it and aimed it at the other 3 militiamen who were staggering, blinded by the flashbangs. "Drop it!" Ryan screamed. "Or you die right now." The 3 men dropped their rifles. They raised their hands, coughing in the smoke. Agents swarmed them, zip-tying them and shoving them against the wall. "Clear!" Brooks shouted. "Room secure." Ryan stood up, his chest heaving. He wiped blood from his lip. He looked down at Kane, the corrupt DA. Kane was pale, gasping for air. "Paramedics!" Ryan yelled. "Get a medic in here." He looked over at the defense table. Rachel Bennett slowly peered over the edge. She saw Ryan standing there, battered, soaked, holding a shotgun, surrounded by smoke and defeated enemies. She stood up, her legs shaking. She walked over to him. "You?" she stammered. "You threw the key." "Diversion," Ryan said, trying to catch his breath. "You could have been killed." "Part of the job." Ryan handed the shotgun to an agent and walked over to where Brooks was dragging Judge Whitaker out of the chambers. Whitaker looked disheveled, his robe wet, his dignity gone. "Is it safe?" Whitaker wheezed. "Are they gone?" Ryan grabbed Whitaker by the lapels of his expensive robe. "You listen to me, Whitaker. You incited this. Every drop of blood spilled here today is on your hands. I'm going to make sure you never see sunlight again. I'm going to bury you under the federal prison system, so deep they'll have to pump air down to you." Whitaker stared at Ryan, and for the first time, the arrogance was truly gone. He saw the end. "Get him out of here," Ryan said, shoving him toward the agents. The fire department burst through the front doors, dousing the flames. The siege was broken. But as the smoke cleared, Ryan looked back at the camera in the vent, the one broadcasting the stream. The red light was still blinking. "Brooks," Ryan said, pointing at the camera. "That wasn't the militia." "What?" "The militia attacked because they were watching the stream," Ryan said, his mind racing. "But they didn't start the stream. Someone else set that camera up. Someone else wanted this to happen. Someone wanted Whitaker to be a martyr." He walked over to D.A. Kane, who was being loaded onto a stretcher. Ryan grabbed Kane's bloody shirt. "Kane, look at me. Who set up the camera? Who is the real money behind Whitaker?" Kane coughed, blood bubbling on his lips. He looked at Ryan with a terrifying clarity. "It wasn't Whitaker," Kane whispered. "Whitaker works for him." "Who?" Ryan demanded. "Who is him?" Kane's eyes rolled back, but he managed one last word. "Senator." Kane passed out. Ryan stood up, staring at the unconscious man. "A senator?" Rachel asked, standing beside him. "A U.S. senator?" Ryan looked at Brooks. The victory of the raid suddenly felt very small. They had cut off the head of the snake only to find out it was just the tail of a dragon. "We need to get to a secure line," Ryan said. "This goes all the way to D.C." After the Willow Springs siege, the smell of smoke still lingered in Ryan Mitchell's memory. But the air in Washington, D.C. was different. It smelled of expensive cologne, exhaust fumes, and power. Ryan sat in a dimly lit conference room inside the J. Edgar Hoover building. Opposite him sat Assistant Director Joyce Vance and a terrified Rachel Bennett. Rachel had been moved to a safe house immediately after the raid. She was the only civilian witness who knew the full extent of Judge Whitaker's operation. "Victor Kane is dead," Vance said, tossing a file onto the table. "Died in the ICU an hour ago. Embolism. Or at least that's what the chart says." "It wasn't an embolism," Ryan said, his voice low. "Someone got to him. He was about to give up a name." "He gave you a name," Vance corrected. "Or a title, senator. Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down, Mitchell? There are 100 senators. Half of them are on payrolls they shouldn't be on." "It's not just any senator," Ryan said, standing up and walking to the whiteboard. "Look at the timeline. Judge Whitaker started his Tough on Crime initiative that coincides exactly with the passage of the Safe Streets and Communities Act, a federal grant program for rural police departments. Ryan drew a line connecting Willow Springs to the act. Willow Springs received millions in grants. For a town of a few thousand people, they bought military gear, surveillance tech, and they built a new evidence storage facility. "The warehouse," Rachel whispered, "where they kept the drugs." "Exactly," Ryan nodded at her. "The federal government paid to build the cartel's distribution center. And who sponsored the Safe Streets Act? Who pushed it through the Judiciary Committee with aggressive lobbying?" Ryan taped a printed photograph onto the whiteboard. It showed a man with silver hair, a winning smile, and eyes that looked like shark glass. "Senator Grant Ellison," Vance said, her face paling. "The chairman of the Oversight Committee." "Ryan, you can't be serious. Ellison is untouchable. He's the frontrunner for the vice presidency. He's using rural towns as wash cycles, Ryan explained. The grant money goes to the towns. The towns hire contractors owned by shell companies. The shell companies donate to Ellison's super PAC. And the drugs. That's just the bonus revenue stream to keep the local cops loyal. It's a perfect circle, Rachel said, horrifying realization dawning on her. Judge Whitaker wasn't the boss. He was just a franchise manager. And now Ellison is cleaning house. Ryan said he burned the courthouse to kill the evidence. He killed Kane to silence the witness. And now Ryan's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. It was a notification from a news app. Breaking news. Senator Ellison calls for emergency hearing on FBI overreach in Willow Springs tragedy. Ryan showed the phone to Vance. He's not running, Ryan said. He's attacking. He's spinning the Willow Springs raid as a rogue FBI operation that endangered civilians and caused the fire. He's going to drag me in front of the Senate and crucify me on live television to cover his tracks. Vance rubbed her temples. If he subpoenas you, you have to go. And he will control the narrative. He'll have the questions rigged. He'll make you look like a domestic terrorist. Let him subpoena me, Ryan said, a cold smile forming on his lips. He thinks he's dragging a beat cop into his office. He forgets I spent years undercover. I know how to wear a mask. Ryan, Rachel said, reaching out to touch his arm. If you go in there and you miss, if you don't nail him, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. He'll pin the fire on you. I know, Ryan said, but I need one thing. I need the ledger. The ledger burned in the courthouse, Vance pointed out. No, Ryan shook his head. Judge Whitaker was greedy. He wouldn't trust Ellison to pay him his fair share without insurance. He kept a personal record. It wasn't in the courthouse. Ryan turned to Rachel. Rachel, you knew the town. Where did he go when he wanted to be alone? Where did he feel safe? Rachel closed her eyes, thinking back to the years of watching the tyrant judge rule her town. He had a boat, a small fishing trawler down at the murky waters of Willow Lake on the edge of the county. He called it the bench. He spent his free time there. Ryan grabbed his jacket. Vance, stall the subpoena. Give me 24 hours. You have 12, Vance said. And Mitchell, don't miss. The Senate hearing room was a cavern of mahogany and marble designed to make human beings feel small. The air was conditioned to a frigid chill. Cameras from every major news network lined the back wall, their red recording lights looking like unblinking eyes. Senator Grant Ellison sat at the center of the raised dais. He looked every inch the statesman. Impeccable Navy suit, American flag pin on his lapel, and a grave, concerned expression plastered on his face. Below him, sitting at a small wooden table with a single microphone, was Ryan Mitchell. Ryan wore his dress uniform, his face impassive. Behind him sat Rachel Bennett, acting as his legal counsel, though her presence was mostly symbolic. Mr. Mitchell, Ellison began, his voice a smooth baritone that echoed through the room. We are here today to discuss the tragic events in Willow Springs. A town burned, a district attorney dead, a judge hospitalized, and at the center of it all, you. Ellison paused for effect. The shutters of the cameras clicked furiously. Senator, Ryan said calmly into the microphone, I was executing a federal warrant on a RICO predicate. A warrant? Ellison scoffed. You entered a sovereign courtroom with a tactical team. You initiated a firefight that led to the burning of a historic building. Tell me, Agent Mitchell, did you authorize the use of flashbang grenades in a room full of civilians? I authorized the rescue of hostages from a militia group, Ryan replied. A militia group that you provoked. Ellison slammed his hand on the desk. We have reports that the citizens of Willow Springs were peaceful until your team arrived like an invading army. You are a cowboy, Agent Mitchell, a dangerous relic who thinks he is above the law. Ellison was good. He was twisting the facts, playing to the cameras, painting Ryan as the villain. The narrative was setting like concrete. I have sworn statements here. Ellison held up a stack of papers from Officer Matt Donovan. He claims you planted evidence. He claims you assaulted him. Officer Donovan is currently facing charges for trafficking kilos of cocaine, Ryan said dryly. I wouldn't rely on his character. And yet, Ellison smiled a predatory grin. You are the one with a history of violence. You are the one who destroyed a town. This committee finds your actions reprehensible. I am recommending that you be stripped of your badge and indicted for involuntary manslaughter regarding the death of Mr. Kane. The room gasped. This was it. The kill shot. Rachel squeezed Ryan's hand under the table. Her palm was sweating. Now, Ryan, she whispered. Do it now. Ryan leaned forward. He didn't look angry. He looked bored. Senator, Ryan said, before you pass judgment, I would like to enter one piece of evidence into the record. Ellison waved his hand dismissively. We have seen your evidence, Agent. It is inadmissible. This isn't from the Willow Springs courthouse, Ryan said. He reached into his briefcase. This is from the hull of a boat called the Bench. Ellison's face twitched. Just a micro-expression, a tightening of the jaw. But Ryan saw it. I don't know what you're talking about, Ellison said, his voice slightly higher. I think you do, Ryan said. He pulled out a leather-bound notebook. It was water-damaged, smelling of lake water and mildew, but the pages were legible. This is Judge Whitaker's personal ledger, Ryan announced to the room. It details every single transaction from the Willow Springs evidence locker for years. Page 42. Payment of $500,000 sent to Apex Solutions. Page 43. Payment of $750,000 sent to Apex Solutions. Ellison stood up. Bailiffs, remove this man. He is grandstanding. I ran a trace on Apex Solutions this morning. Ryan continued, shouting over the senator. He pulled out a second document, a bank record. Apex Solutions has only one beneficiary, a super PAC named Liberty for Tomorrow. Ryan looked directly into the camera lens. Senator Ellison, are you not the chairman of Liberty for Tomorrow? The room exploded. Reporters jumped to their feet, shouting questions. The flashes were blinding. Ellison's face had gone from confident to ash gray. He looked around the room, realizing the trap hadn't been for Ryan. It had been for him. He had called the hearing to destroy Ryan, but he had just given Ryan a national stage to unveil the smoking gun. This hearing is adjourned, Ellison screamed, slamming his gavel. Adjourned. You can't adjourn the truth, Ryan shouted. The FBI has already frozen the accounts. We have the wire transfers. It's over. Cut his mic, Ellison yelled at the technicians. Cut the feed. The microphone went dead, but it didn't matter. The noise in the room was deafening. Suddenly, the doors to the hearing room opened. But it wasn't bailiffs coming in. It was the FBI director herself, flanked by 4 agents. She walked down the center aisle, ignoring the chaos. She walked right past Ryan, giving him a curt nod of respect. She walked up the steps of the dais. She stopped in front of Senator Ellison. Senator Grant Ellison, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. I have a warrant for your arrest. Ellison looked at the agents, then at the cameras, then at Ryan. The arrogance finally shattered. He slumped back into his chair, a small, defeated man. You can't do this, Ellison whispered. I'm a senator. Not anymore, Ryan said from the table below. Now you're just another suspect. As the agents moved in to cuff the senator on live television, Ryan sat back in his chair. He looked at Rachel. She was crying, a smile breaking through the tears. We did it, she said. We actually did it. Not yet, Ryan said. He wasn't looking at the senator. He was looking at his phone. A new message had just popped up. It wasn't from Vance. It wasn't from the office. It was from an unknown number. You took down the pawn. You took down the knight. But you forgot the king. The game isn't over, Agent Mitchell. Check your daughter's school schedule. Ryan's blood froze in his veins. The victory evaporated instantly. He stood up so fast his chair toppled over. Ryan? Rachel asked, alarmed. What is it? My daughter, Ryan breathed. They know about Sophie. Ryan Mitchell didn't wait for a direct order. The second he read the text, adrenaline spiked, overriding the fatigue of the past week. He didn't bother reholstering his weapon. He just ran. Sophie's school at St. Catherine's Academy, Ryan roared, shoving the phone into Agent Brooks' hand. Track this number. Secure her now. Brooks, accustomed to Mitchell's high-stakes intensity, didn't hesitate. Go, Agent. I'll mobilize D.C. protection, but you get to the school. Ryan sprinted out of the Senate hearing room, pushing past stunned reporters and the flustered agents still processing the arrested Senator Ellison. Rachel Bennett, recovering quickly, grabbed Ryan's briefcase and followed him. They commandeered an unmarked FBI vehicle. Ryan drove with the reckless speed of a father racing against a countdown he couldn't see. Who is the king? Rachel gasped, gripping the dashboard. Who is higher than a senator? Someone who doesn't dirty their own hands, Ryan ground out. Someone who thinks 5,000 feet is a safe distance. Someone with the reach to know Sophie's schedule. They reached St. Catherine's in minutes. Ryan burst through the gates, badge flashing. Sophie was safe, playing on the jungle gym, blissfully unaware of the terror her father felt. The school was immediately locked down. As Sophie was secured by the detail, Ryan stood outside, the sweat turning cold on his skin. He looked at the text again. Check your daughter's school schedule. It wasn't a kidnapping threat. It was a taunt, a precision strike designed to pull him out of the Capitol building. Suddenly, Brooks's voice crackled through the comms. Mitchell, it was a feint. A high-level IP trace shows the message server linking back to a private line owned by Leland Crawford. Crawford. Ryan repeated the name associated with every piece of legislation that enabled the fraud. The man who wrote the contracts, ran the super PACs, and kept the political machine oiled. The ultimate fixer. The king. But here's the kicker, Brooks continued, his voice tight with alarm. Crawford didn't just want you out. Our cyber team just detected a massive encrypted data wipe attempt originating from the FBI's high-security evidence bunker in Quantico, where we transferred all of Whitaker's and Ellison's digital evidence this morning. Ryan slammed his fist on the hood of the car. He was stalling us. The threat to Sophie was calculated to buy him the exact travel time needed to get to Quantico and erase the final master ledger before we could decrypt it. He must have a mole inside our own department, Rachel whispered, utterly shocked by the depth of the corruption. He doesn't need a mole, Ryan snarled. He just needs the digital keys. Brooks, reroute the team to Quantico. I'm taking the bird now. Quantico. The secure evidence bunker was miles deep, protected by layers of military-grade security. Ryan arrived via helicopter, dropping onto the tarmac and sprinting toward the access point. Brooks met him at the security door. He's inside, Mitchell. We've locked him in the decryption room, but the firewall is failing. He's using a digital back door he paid someone to install years ago. They breached the final door. Leland Crawford, impeccably dressed in a $5,000 suit, was standing over a console, his fingers flying across the keys. A small black box was plugged into the federal network. The digital kill switch. Crawford looked up, his face devoid of fear, only cold fury. You were supposed to be watching your child, Agent Mitchell. That was an expensive distraction. And now you've ruined my beautiful, elegant exit. You built an entire drug cartel on the backs of federal grants and used dirty cops and judges as your disposable staff, Ryan said, walking slowly toward the man. You used a senator as a shield, and you were willing to threaten a child to cover your tracks. It's just business, Agent, Crawford sneered. I provided liquidity. I ensured political continuity. I protected American interests from messy, low-level crime by managing it myself. He looked back at the screen. 5 more seconds, and this entire investigation is vapor. You will have nothing but the word of 2 drug dealers and a politician. He pressed the final sequence. Wipe sequence initiated. Ryan didn't charge him. He stopped 3 feet away. You're a brilliant architect, Crawford, Ryan said, nodding slowly. You think you've considered every variable. But you forgot one thing. Crawford frowned, confused. What? The evidence wasn't the target, Ryan said, stepping aside, revealing Agent Brooks, who was holding a high-definition recording device. You were. We knew the man who ran an operation this large wouldn't rely on a simple text message. We knew you'd be tracking us. Crawford's eyes widened. That text message wasn't a feint to the evidence, Ryan explained. It was a lure to bring me here so you could watch me fail. But the minute that message hit my phone, every keystroke you've made, every access code you've entered, and this entire confession has been streamed directly to the Department of Justice's grand jury. Crawford stared at the recording device. The sophisticated trap he had set for Ryan had become the self-destruct mechanism for the king. The digital kill switch you just activated, Ryan said, a slow, deep satisfaction settling in his voice. It didn't erase the evidence. It triggered a deep upload to a secure DOJ server. You just signed your own confession, Crawford. The karma was immediate, swift, and overwhelming. Crawford didn't fight. He just looked at the blinking upload icon, realizing his empire was gone in a single digital stroke. He was the most powerful man in Washington, brought down by his own hubris, and the one black FBI agent he had underestimated until the very last second. Brooks cuffed the king of corruption, the reign of Senator Grant Ellison, Judge Harlan Whitaker, Chief Frank Callahan, and the ultimate puppet master, Leland Crawford, ended not with a bang, but with a mouse click. Ryan Mitchell, the man they tried to jail for good, didn't just walk free. He stood tall, the ultimate victor in a game he was never supposed to win. The Willow Springs case became a national scandal, peeling back the layers of corruption that snaked from a small southern town all the way to the highest levels of Washington. Officer Matt Donovan, facing life in prison, turned state's evidence, delivering crucial testimony that sealed the fate of Chief Callahan and the ailing Judge Whitaker. Whitaker died in federal custody months later, his reputation and fortune gone. Senator Ellison and Leland Crawford were convicted on multiple counts of RICO and conspiracy. The irony was brutal. The political establishment, which had built its power on the illusion of law and order, was dismantled by the exact system it tried to corrupt. Justice, often slow, finally delivered the hard karma these villains deserved, thanks to the patience and resilience of Special Agent Ryan Mitchell. In the end, after the smoke cleared and the corrupt empire crumbled, Ryan Mitchell stood tall, not just as an FBI agent who brought down a powerful network, but as living proof that true justice can rise from the darkest moments of betrayal and deception. The most powerful lesson from this story is that integrity and quiet courage will always outlast arrogance and greed. No matter how stacked the system seems, no matter how many powerful voices try to silence the truth or crush the innocent, one person with unwavering principles can turn the tide. Ryan didn't win because he was louder or stronger in the moment. He won because he stayed patient, stayed smart, and never lost sight of what was right. He endured humiliation, threats to his own family, and the weight of a rigged courtroom. Yet, he never gave up hope or compromised his values. That kind of inner strength reminds us that real heroes aren't always the ones in the spotlight at first. Sometimes they're the ones wearing handcuffs, trusting that the truth will eventually speak louder than any lie. This story leaves us with a deep emotional truth. When you stand for justice, even when the whole world seems against you, the universe has a way of fighting back on your behalf. It may take time, it may test every part of you, but goodness and honesty carry a power that corruption can never match. Never underestimate the quiet force of doing the right thing. If Ryan's incredible journey moved you as much as it moved me, drop a comment below and